Hey everybody, what's up? Trey Wingo here. Welcome into the latest edition of the Straight Facts Homie podcast, the podcast where we don't yell at you, we don't scream at you, we don't tell you what we think, we tell you what we know based on the data and the research about how things should play out, how they did play out, and the things that made these things seem likely. Nothing seemed likely about what happened with the Dallas Cowboys Sunday night as they played away 40-40 tie with the Green Bay Packers, one of the highest scoring ties in the history of the NFL. Weirdly, the Cowboys have played two home games. Both have gone to overtime, and they've scored 40 in both of them. They scored the game-winning field goal from Brandon Aubrey, 40-37, take care of the Giants, and they score 40 again in the overtime tie with the Green Bay Packers. And considering this was the Cowboys Super Bowl, it's completely on brand that it was completely unsatisfying in every way, shape, and form. Micah Parsons returned, didn't have a huge impact on the game, but did have the game-saving play. In the extra session, when it looked like Dak Prescott was scrambling to his left and was going to run in for a touchdown that would have really made it difficult for Green Bay to come back, he managed to tackle and sack Dak Prescott behind the line of scrimmage for 0 yards. It goes down as a sack, and that made them kick a field goal, which allowed the Packers to then march down the field and kick a field goal as time expired in overtime to keep the tie. Micah was not happy with that. He said it pissed him off. Dak said he didn't know how to feel about it. But at the end of the day, the most on-brand thing is if this was the Cowboys Super Bowl because Micah was returning and nobody's happy, including the Cowboys, chef's kiss on brand. And oh, by the way, Jerry Jones was on the pregame show for Sunday Night Football. And of course, if you're NBC, you're taking Jerry Jones. I don't know how they convinced Jerry Jones to stare into a camera and talk into a microphone. Jerry never does that. But there he was, front and center, once again trying to justify the trade of Micah Parsons. You can't. And stop trying, okay? Go look at your defense. They are historically awful. Jordan Love did whatever he wanted. He threw 3 touchdown passes to Romeo Doubs. He threw all over the place. Okay, the Cowboys are extremely lucky that they escaped with a tie, because the thing that changed the game was an extra point, which is, by the way, again, the greatest rule change in the last 20 years in the NFL. The extra point has become an actual play. They just scored a touchdown to go up 13-0. They're kicking the extra point. It's blocked. The Cowboys run it back for a 2-point conversion, 13-2. And then they get the ball back. They go drive down and score. And then the Packers fumble, and the Cowboys score again. So they were looking at being down 14 or 17-0 at the half, and somehow they go into the half 16-13 up with the lead. And just all unfolded from there. So a couple of things. Dak Prescott is playing at an MVP level. Dak Prescott is playing quarterback as well as anyone in the NFL right now. And yes, that includes Josh Allen, who some would like you to believe is playing quarterback better than anybody has ever played it. That's not true, but Josh is playing very well. Jordan Love has played very well, except here's the problem for the Packers. The first 2 weeks, they look like world beaters, right? They take care of the Lions, who had come in and won the last 3 at Lambeau Field. Then they win week 2. Then they kind of stub their toe against the Cleveland Browns. And look, the Browns are tough, especially at home, even though we didn't see that on Sunday, and we talked about that. We will talk about that. But the Browns at home with that defense are very difficult, and they sort of gave that one away. A couple of turnovers down the stretch, blocked field goal kept the Browns in it. And the Packers did it again this week. They kind of stubbed their toe again. They had the turnover right before the half, and that allowed the Cowboys to take the lead before the half. Green Bay was their own worst enemy in this game, and that's why this game ended up in a 40-40 tie. And if we're talking about the Packers as one of the elite teams in the NFL, they got to stop doing that. They're 2-1-1, which is really, really bizarre. And I think they just need to clean some things up. Before the interception thrown in the game against the Browns, Jordan Love had gone 9 straight games without throwing an interception. That tied the Packers' record in the Super Bowl era for the most games without throwing an interception. Could have set the record against Cleveland. He throws one up there. And then we have the turnover right before the half, which was just a killer, an absolute killer, which flipped that game completely. Green Bay right now is its own worst enemy. They can take care of that. I don't know what the Cowboys are, right? Except that Dak Prescott is playing at an MVP level. They scored 40 points against what we all thought was a pretty good Green Bay defense that didn't have CeeDee Lamb. CeeDee Lamb's not out there because he suffered the high ankle sprain the week before against the Chicago Bears. So when you have a team that has their number one wide receiver gone, and somehow they find a way to put up 40 points, and George Pickens absolutely balled out. You feel good about that offense. But as for the defense, they give up 24 in the game at Philadelphia. They give up 40 to the Giants. They gave up 31 to the Bears. They made Caleb Williams look like Patrick Mahomes in that game, okay? And then they give up 40. So this whole idea of trading Micah Parsons ain't working right now. And, Jerry on the pregame show said the idea was to get a Super Bowl run play and get players for trading Micah Parsons in the Dak Prescott era. Well, if you hadn't made Dak Prescott the highest paid quarterback in football at the time, maybe you could have kept Micah Parsons. And I'm going to keep harping on this because as long as Jerry keeps talking about it and trying to sell this BS about was the right thing for the team, it wasn't, okay? This became personal between Jerry and Micah. And it's always personal for the player. But if you're the owner and you're the general manager and you're in charge of the business, you never make it personal. I mean, back when Emmitt Smith was holding out, Jerry realized in 1993, holy crap, we're not nearly as good without Emmitt Smith. I was wrong, so I need to go ahead and take care of this. He didn't do that this time. He got stubborn. He got angry. He didn't even want to deal with the agent, and now he's paying the consequences. Every offense in the NFL is looking at their schedule right now and saying, when can we play the Cowboys? When can we play the Cowboys? Need a get-right game? Let's go up against that Cowboys defense because they can't stop anybody. And that is of their own creation because they decided to trade away a generational player. And I know he only had the 1 sack in the game, but remember, he's coming back from that back injury. And also, he didn't participate in training camp or mini camp or any of the preseason games. And the Packers are actually doing a really good job of bringing him along slowly. Micah's going to be firing at all cylinders by the time we get to mid-October. So he's going to be healthy and ready to roll for the meat of the season or the meat of the schedule for the Green Bay Packers. So the early returns are great for Micah. The mid to late returns are going to be even better. So you look at the Cowboys' schedule. All right, they finally get what might be a winnable game for them. They got to go on the road to play the Jets. Then they've got Carolina. Then they got to play the Commanders, the Broncos, the Cardinals, the Raiders. I mean, there are some doable games for the Dallas Cowboys, but if they can't get right against their next couple opponents, then they're really in trouble. I mean, if the Cowboys can't go out there and take care of business against the teams we're talking about, then they're in real trouble. The organization is already in real trouble because the guy running the organization is not letting the guy who's ruining the organization stop ruining the organization. And that's because they're the same guy. Don't ever believe the spin that the Cowboys are telling you about it was the right move to trade Micah Parsons. It wasn't before they traded him. It wasn't during the trade. And we have seen dramatically since the trade, it wasn't the right decision. And the only person that doesn't seem to know that is the guy that made the trade himself, Jerry Jones. And those are just straight facts, homie.